welcome to Prepperties, where we're on the hunt for safe haven properties worldwide. I'm your host, Diane Cohn, and with me today is Fabian Calvo, who is the president of the Note House. Welcome, Fabian.
Thanks for having me on, Diane. I'm so excited to be here, and I just absolutely love the topic of your show and when you talk about it. Such a great idea, and it's so important, especially in the day we live in.
Well, thanks. I've been reading the alternative media probably for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and it just seems like a topic that no one really talks about, so I thought I'd give it a go.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So, my husband and I are big fans of your show, and I'm just really curious, how did you get into real estate? And also, what are you doing in the business? Because I know you do classes and teaching, and I know you do some kind of investing, but I'm a little fuzzy on it all. So, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I started in real estate about 13, 14 years ago. It was really after I had gone through a string of about 7 jobs in one summer, folding T-shirts at a clothing department, working at a pizza place. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And I realized growing up in my dad's small business that I didn't want to be part of the job paradigm. I didn't want to work for somebody else. I wanted to be my own boss, make my own hours, but I didn't know where or what to do. But I did start to look around, and I noticed that friends of my family and a lot of just the people that were doing well or well off were either investors in real estate or had something to do with real estate. So I was living in LA at the time, and I moved to Florida, and I basically started my real estate career. I mean, I devoured everything I could about real estate investing. And, fast forward 13 years later, and it's just been a great decision in my life. I haven't had a job since, and I absolutely love real estate investing.
So you work a lot with big investors. So I mean, it sounds like you're not a traditional agent or broker, that you're more of an entrepreneur. I mean, I almost think you're a scout finding deals for people. I mean, what is it exactly?
Yeah, so basically 3 years ago, after the '08 crash, leading up to the '08 crash, I had assembled a portfolio of several thousand rental units, and they were located throughout the Gulf Coast of Florida and Mississippi. When the crash happened, I was hit really hard, like a lot of investors of the time. But it was such a key, just learning lesson for myself and so many other things that from there I started my company, the Note House, which basically begun. It's really an opportunistic fund looking to buy distressed, non-performing commercial loans that we do from a lot of big multi-billion-dollar financial institutions and big mega banks. And typically what we do is we buy those, we do workouts with owners, or we may resell them quickly to other investors that are going to be the end user, right? They're going to buy that loan, do the workout with the owner, and then take possession of the property and then just run the property long term. So that's one of the funds that the Note House is involved in. We also have another fund that's a bank-owned real estate, or an REO fund, where we buy REOs in about 30 different markets. And we have investors from all over the world that we work with. So it's very exciting, and it speaks to the volume of opportunity available in the real estate market, whether the market's going up or it's going down. The opportunities are really abundant.
So if I'm clear from following your work, you seem pretty certain that we are living in a financial Ponzi system, and it's interesting that you're so wrapped up in the real estate business. Like you said, whether it's going up or whether it's going down, there's always opportunity. But what is it that made you start ranting on YouTube about the system that we live in and how corrupt you see it, and just how you see unsustainable going forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, my whole entire life, I've loved history, I've loved current events. So starting the YouTube channel, I had a radio show in Tampa for several years. So it was really just a kind of an extension of that. And it's really from being on the front lines of the economic system and the financial system, and the people that I speak to and the different experts that I do business with or do deals with. That circle of influence with coupled with my just my knowledge of history and my research, that's led me to believe that we're in an absolutely unsustainable period of time, economically speaking. We're America is the largest debtor nation in the world. And we're really seeing history, Diane, repeat itself in so many different ways, and so I think that with all of the debt that America has, not just the $17 trillion in debt, but the over $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities, the $1.4 quadrillion in phony derivatives, of which America has signed up to about 800 trillion of those. That it's just an unsustainable, it's just completely unsustainable. And there will be either some kind of collapse or some kind of reset of the economy, not just in America, but of the West. I mean, Western countries are all pretty much bankrupt and running amok, trying to take people's pension funds, take money out of their savings account, whatever it may be, or devalue currencies to basically keep the system going. But history tells us that it won't go on forever. So I think as an investor, specifically in real estate, it's one of the reasons I have such a short-term time horizon. I mean, other than, let's say, like a survival retreat property that I'm going to plan on having for a long term, all the real estate deals that I do are short term. We're very risk adverse. We really know our markets and our model and how it works. And honestly, I believe that after we have an economic reset, it's going to open the door to quite probably one of the best opportunities in the real estate market ever.
So that brings me to a question that I was going to address later, but I'll ask it now. If you see a financial collapse coming, what does the average schmo like me do in terms of buying real estate? Should I wait for the collapse because then there's the proverbial blood in the streets and it'll be a better deal? Should I take advantage of things now, like you've managed to do? I mean, what do you tell people?
Yeah, so for real estate investors, I think what makes this market so exciting, Diane, for me and I think for others when they realize this is that we really have a couple of historic things going on in the real estate market. One of them is the amount of toxic debt and mortgages and properties that are still out there. It's in the trillions of dollars. I mean, they're all over the country. And then on the flip side, we have a historic amount of money that's coming into the market. Sovereign wealth funds. The largest sovereign wealth fund from Norway is buying U.S. real estate. Carlos Slim, one of the biggest billionaires in the world, is buying distressed real estate. So all these mega billionaires, sovereign wealth funds, hedge fund, private equities are buying record amounts of real estate. That's why in majority of metro markets, cash sales account for 50 to 70% of all sales. And so I think people that can position themselves as an expert, be able to access that inventory of distressed debt, and then be able to basically sell it or work with these what I call best buyers or these cash investors are really positioning themselves in a way to really profit from the current real estate market. In the collapse environment, I mean, this will only continue. I mean, look, right now I know for an absolute fact there's multiple funds out there, not just for real estate, but for stocks and everything else that are waiting for a big devaluation. They're waiting for a big leg down in the collapse so they can swoop in and buy stuff at pennies on the dollar. So look, these boom and bust cycles have been going on for a while, and a lot of very prominent and astute investors out there realize them and they make money off of them. So I mean, I'm a big believer that the average Joe and Jane out there can learn these tactics and apply them, maybe not on the scale that some of these hedge funds are, but apply them in their own hometown from their home computer.
Okay, so you mentioned on a couple of really big trends, the sovereign wealth fund, and I think it was Mike Krieger who recently had a piece in Zero Hedge talking about the two trades he sees. One is the money laundering trade where oligarchs, take their winnings and they put them into real estate, oftentimes here in the US, oftentimes elsewhere.
Sure.
And then there's the other one that been going on for a while now, the sort of the Wall Street landlord, buy to rent trade, which, is pretty interesting as well. Have you been seeing these, and are you seeing any other trends that are kind of under the radar at this point?
Well, the biggest trend that I started talking about a year ago was the pump and dump that's underway in the real estate market. I mean, people think of pump and dumps, like, for example, in a penny stock where you'll get the people that are the pumpers, they'll buy in, let's say, at a stock when it's a penny, they'll pump it up, say it's a great thing ever, in hopes that they can get it up to maybe 50 cents, and then they dump it, and pretty much everyone who bought in late, gets clobbered. Well, we're seeing that now in the real estate market where you have record amounts of toxic debt from 08, 09. It's being bought up in the hundreds of billions of dollars by these big financial institutions, big hedge funds, and you name it. And they're waiting, and you're beginning to see that this happen. They're going to start to dump these to pretty much first-time home buyers that get no money down loans. I think that's the biggest trend. The Obama administration has been lobbying banks hardcore to reduce their roadblocks for people to get a loan. FHA has over $1 trillion worth of loans on the books. People are buying homes now with 3% down. It's interesting. I see a lot of credit-worthy borrowers that can't get loans, but people that are not credit worthy can get a loan. So I think that's a really big trend. I think that after the midterm election, we're going to start to see a real pickup in the no money down loans. I've been saying that now for over a year and a half. And much of what I outlined in the micro documentary that I put out about a year and a half ago is coming to fruition exactly as I said. So I think that's the biggest trend. To speak on the other 2 points that you mentioned, I definitely have seen both. I mean, with the first, seeing these other oligarchs and all these other people in these other countries. I mean, are those guys buying real estate? I'm sure they are. It's why you see them buying a lot of stuff in New York, especially the Russians in New York. It's obviously hard to determine who exactly is behind what, but we can see foreign investors from China, from Russia, from South America that definitely have a big footprint in the U.S. real estate market, and I think that's going to, quite frankly, continue.
So, what do you think about the buy to rent trade? Because I see people speculating, oh, these big hedge funds are going to dump it all on the market and it's going to, crash again. But I'm kind of thinking, and I think other people have mentioned this, that they're probably going to securitize it. I mean, they're already doing that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
they've already
almost like the
started.
subprime reborn in another format. I mean, am I off base, or what do you think?
No, I think it's absolutely correct. I mean, they've already started it. Blackstone started it already with basically securitizing a lot of their REO rentals. It's completely unproven whether or not it'll work or not. But I think it speaks to the kind of longer term position some of these funds are taking on. By the way, these funds that you have access to billion-dollar lines of credit at 0% interest rate or 1% interest from the big mega banks. I mean, Deutsche Bank giving a $2 billion loan to Blackstone so they can go and they can buy up all of this real estate. So yeah, I think that's definitely an emerging trend. I did a whole video on it a few weeks ago, breaking that down. So yeah, I think it's something to look out for. And overall, all of these trends, Diane, show more of, like every market, the manipulation by the central planners in the real estate market. So it's what ultimately ends up happening. No one knows.
So to me, it just feels like we're on the same train again, and it just feels like it's getting bigger and worse. And so for the collapse, I can see that. You just can't print money forever and go into debt forever until you run out of ways to pay it back. So if you see a financial collapse coming, what are you doing personally to prepare and to keep your family safe?
Sure. Well, I'm a big believer in opting out of the system that the authoritarians have created, and that spans many different categories. If you're somebody, you could opt out of their health system with Obamacare and basically take good care of yourself, exercise, and not have to be part of that system. You could opt out of the job paradigm where wages aren't going up and your dollar continues to go down in value by becoming an entrepreneur. I think that pretty much anyone who believes, Diane, in individual liberty, by default must believe in personal responsibility, 100% personal responsibility over their life. I think the biggest coffin nails for the authoritarian and the criminal banking cartels is individuals in mass just taking complete responsibility over themselves, opting out of the job paradigm, following their passion, making a living doing what they're passionate about. That's one of the number one things that I've done in my life and how I've set up my life. And I'm extremely passionate about educating others and helping others awaken to that fact. Of course, I have my preparations with food storage underway. I have a couple different, survival retreats, if you will, in case things really get bad. And I think one of the most important things that people need to understand and begin to research and look into is planting flags internationally. And what I mean by that is just maybe making sure you have a passport, or if you can get a second passport, having a foreign bank account. These are things that are pretty easy to do that many times you can do right from the comfort of your living room. Because, as I heard someone mention, he put it perfectly. He said, you have to think like a Jew living in Germany in the early 1930s. I mean, really, that might be grim, but I think if you look at the world that way, plan accordingly, and then just get all those preparations out of the way, then you can just focus on your life, being the best that you can be, growing your business, improving relationships with your family, things like that. And that's basically what I'm doing for myself.
So what I'm hearing is starve the beast. And if enough
Yeah.
people drop out, become more self-sufficient in their own communities, they starve the beast and it begins to lose its grip on everyone.
No question. I mean, that's what they want, Dan. That's what people see. They want dependence. They want people to be dependent on them for healthcare, for their pension fund, for everything else. And that fraud is going to come to an end at some point. When it does, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. But it will come to an end eventually. And they're going to have to, they're going to be called out on the fact that, the Social Security Trust Fund that they raided was a total Ponzi scheme. What they've done to the US dollar with the devaluation and the quantitative easing is a complete Ponzi scheme. The NSA and their surveillance state, all these things that are so egregious and illegal. I think that eventually they'll be exposed, and hopefully people that have been part of that will be held accountable.
Okay, so I'm going to change course here a little bit. One of the things I worry about personally is Fukushima. And I know to a lot of people watching that's going to sound weird because, officially it's all contained. There's no
Sure.
problem. But I've been following the alternative news on this for a couple of years now. And honestly, all the evidence is that it just gets worse and worse and worse. I don't know how big of a problem it will be for North America. I don't know if you follow it or even think about it. Um, but it just seems to be one of those black swan events that over time could create a hazard for those of us in North America. I don't know. What do you think about that? And is it a possibility? And if so, how would you protect yourself from the fallout of that,
Yeah,
literally?
I mean, I think in case, and you saw the government just buy, I think it was either hundreds of thousands or millions of thousands of tablets of iodine, potassium iodine, which is used in the events of, nuclear war or some kind of nuclear fallout. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely concerning. I spend a lot of time on the West Coast, and recently you saw this guy on the beach up by San Francisco with the Geiger counter was reporting like 10 times the radioactive. I think a lot of it may be due to just so many citizen journalists going out there and taking readings, and some of them could be wrong or whatever it may be. Maybe their machines that calibrated. But the bottom line is, Diane, there is absolutely no question government's lying to us about the real event and how bad Fukushima is, because they lie about everything else. I mean, they're lying about the fluoride in the water, although Harvard studies and other prominent Ivy League schools showed that it reduces IQ over time, but they lie about it all. So, I mean, again, here's why, in that streak of just having that independent spirit, really just validating everything for yourself and not trusting in the mainstream media, or in many cases, even the alternative media. Just do your own research and trusting yourself. Because I think ultimately that's when people make the best decision, is when they look at everyone's opinion, they look at everything, and then they themselves determine what they want to do. And for some, that may mean get away from the West Coast because, they think the problem will grow worse and worse.
Well, this is one of the things I love about your channel and the work that you do is that you really encourage people to be entrepreneurs, to go out and do something different and weird, and see, just get off the job treadmill, which is really hard when you've been on that your whole life.
Yeah.
What I want to dig into a little bit is how do you pick a business that's going to succeed? Because honestly, and this is a little embarrassing, we've started all kinds of businesses that have completely failed, and one of them was a spectacular failure financially, but operationally it was
Right.
fantastic. We learned a
Yeah.
lot, but
Yeah.
it's just I don't know how is it that you find something that people are going to care about? There's just so much noise. Everybody's a YouTube star. I don't know. I'm looking for the magic bullet here, Fabian.
Sure. Well,
Help me out.
I think it's kind of really easier than people think, Diane. I think that, when I'm asked what kind of business, so, if I don't want to be a real estate investor, what else should I do, Fabian? I always say it should be centered around your passion. What do you love to do? Because we live in a world today, Diane, which is one of the greatest things about for entrepreneurs today, is that we live in a world where whatever it is you love to do, I will almost guarantee you a few things are happening. First, there's at least a million, if not millions, of other people globally that love that same passion. Secondly, there's likely other experts, educators, individuals, entrepreneurs who are making a living catering to people who love that thing that you're passionate about or that topic you're passionate about. So I'm telling people, why don't you become the expert? You go out there and start doing videos. You go out there and start doing a blog, start educating people about your passion and your perspectives about your passion, because it's going to be unique to anybody else's. And I think that's over time how people can opt out of the job paradigm. And in some cases, I've seen people that have followed this advice and that have really educated themselves to best practices as it relates to running a business in this environment, and have done really well and have been able to quit their job and in 60 to 90 days from starting this. So that's what I find most exciting. And to just touch on your failure, I've had failures in my life. Quite frankly, I think it's just something that is common for entrepreneurs to fail forward. We fail and we learn. We're told in our life that failure is bad. I think failure is good, because if you learn from it, well, then you just keep on going. And I think that's what makes entrepreneurs unique. And we really need more of that. I wish our government would learn from the failures of its mistakes. It just keeps doing the same thing over and over again,
Right. So okay. Not to turn this into a personal counseling session, but you did. So I'm getting that it's okay to do this. I mean, and not know what the business model is or where the income's going to come from. It's just do what you. There's a
do what you
book,
love to.
the money will follow.
Yeah, and then you can also get into a lot of things like the law of attraction and things of that. This is why, for my channel, Diane, I wanted to get away. I mean, I'm an economic realist. I'm a realist to the police state. I'm a realist to our criminal government, and I expose it. I talk about it. But at the same time, I'm a realist to the power of the individual. And so if anyone, listening, anyone, whatever it is that they love to do, I'm a firm believer that they can make a career just following what they love to do. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's likely going to take hard work. But if people stick with it, that's what will matter, and that's how they'll ultimately make it. The idea of like an overnight success, that's likely those overnight successes are usually born after 10 or 15 years of hard work. So I would say stick with your passion. Keep going and keep putting content out there, and you'll be amazed how you grow your audience and you grow your what's usually called a tribe. In marketing circles.
Well, that's interesting. So tell me then about who you follow online, or who are some of the people, maybe lesser known folks that you admire and that you follow and that have taught you, helped you along your path.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, I'm a big reader. I mean, there's this kind of really corny saying that readers are leaders, but it's pretty true. I mean, being on the cutting edge of anything, people that are always filling their mind with new information. So, gosh, I mean, as far as people that I follow, I mean, of course, I like to follow people like Jim Rogers, Peter Schiff, that put out good economic information, and I really listen to all kinds of aspects. I mean, I'll monitor mainstream media. I'll watch MSNBC. I'll watch Fox News. I mean, most of it's deceived and lies, but but it just I follow it just to hear what they're telling the American people, what they're programming the American people with, not so much to get my news. So I enjoy that. I as far as economics and or entrepreneurship, I'm a big fan of Jay Abrams. I think he's a great, marketer, great educator as far as helping entrepreneurs market their business. So that's pretty much some of the influences that I get.
So Jay Abrams, not to be confused with J.J. Abrams, two different people.
Okay. Right, Jay Abrams. You're right, Murphy, who recently came out with a new podcast, which is pretty great. I hear.
Good. I'll look him up. That's excellent. Well, Fabian, that's awesome. Thank you. That's all the time we have today. I would love to thank you for being on my show today.
Yeah, I loved it, Diane. I wish you the best. And let me just say, with respect to, people all over the world are looking right now for survival retreats. They're looking for places that they could bug out to. And I just think it is such an incredible idea. Not only are they looking for it in America, but also in the States, because some people, I mean, outside of the country, not everybody can go to, Cambodia or to Mongolia or to Panama, but they can go a couple hours from their house. And so I just think that there's just such a growing trend for that. I really think, you're in a good position.
Okay, good. Then I'll keep doing it. All right. Well, if you'd like to follow Fabian's work or learn more about real estate investing, you can find him at Fabian4Liberty.com. And thanks for watching. Until next time, I will see you later.